Pisces, Aries, Cuspers, welcome in, beautiful souls. What if the thing blocking your next breakthrough isn't your future? Maybe it's just a battle that you secretly keep fighting with yourself, because Spirit's saying June isn't about winning. It's about finally putting down the sword. Beautiful souls, let's dive in. Thank you for being here. Thank you for hitting the like button. And thank you for those that leave comments, even if it's just that wolf emoji in the blue heart, right? So let's have a look here at, we are diving into some shadow work here, something a little bit different. I haven't done a shadow work, proper shadow work message per cusp sign. So let's dive in here, specifically for the Pisces Aries cusp. This card, the Five of Swords, is coming out, the shadow work, which is needed to unlock your next phase of your transformation. And honestly, I feel like some of you already know exactly what this is about. The Five of Swords isn't showing me conflict with other people first, right? It's showing me conflict within yourself. This is the shadow of survival mode, right? The shadow that believes I have to protect myself, I have to prove myself, I can't let my guard down. I can't be vulnerable because people will use it against me. So what Spirit is saying, somewhere along your journey, fighting became familiar. Not because you enjoy the conflict, but because conflict taught you how to survive. That some of you learned to anticipate a rejection before it actually happened. Maybe some of you had to learn to leave first before someone else could leave you. Some of you maybe learned to argue your truth because nobody listened when you actually spoke softly. So the shadow work coming through for this month is asking, what battle are you still fighting that ended a long time ago? Because I feel like energetically, Spirit is showing me here some of you carrying old weapons into new relationships or next stages of your relationships. The old disappointments into the new opportunities, the old fears into new beginnings. So these old swords are actually getting a little bit heavy. So what I'm getting also from here is some of you, all right, remember to take what resonates, leave the rest. So I'm getting a scenario here that maybe you find yourself feeling defensive around someone who actually supports you. Someone gives advice, someone offers help, someone expresses concern, and then immediately your nervous system interprets it as criticism. Not because they're actually attacking you, but because the old wounds are still expecting an attack. Now, scenario 2, I'm getting here that maybe perhaps some of you are fighting yourselves. Every time you're ready to move forward, you start maybe questioning yourself, second guessing yourself, doubting yourself. It's like you simultaneously the warrior, right, and the opponent. Now, the other scenario I'm getting out of this card here is that some of you are maybe carrying some sort of resentment that you haven't fully processed, a betrayal, a disappointment, a situation where maybe you felt misunderstood. What Spirit is saying, that healing doesn't mean protecting it doesn't hurt, right? What I actually say, they're saying here, pretending. Healing doesn't mean pretending it doesn't hurt. Okay, perhaps you've been very protective of yourself, right? So healing means releasing the need to continue carrying it, right? So perhaps this month is asking you is, can you choose something about cheese? Okay, can you choose peace over being right? Can you choose healing over replaying the story? And I'm hearing that will be the doorway to your next transformation. So what belief or old pattern from your past are currently influencing your present, the High Priestess? This is profound, right? Because the High Priestess normally reveals the hidden programming. The things operating beneath the surface, the things that you don't always consciously notice. So what Spirit is saying, for many of the Pisces, Aries, Cuspers have perhaps developed a belief that they had to have everything figured out alone. Maybe you learned to trust yourself because there were maybe moments when trusting others felt unsafe. And the problem is the survival mechanism, right, became your identity. Now you carry this wisdom, all right? Now you carry wisdom. But sometimes you carry isolation as well. So the High Priestess here says that your intuition is extremely powerful, but the shadow work here is asking, are you listening to your intuition? Or are you listening to the fear that is disguised as intuition? Because there's a difference, right? Fear contrasts, right? Intuition expands, fear rushes. Intuition knows, fear how can I say, cataphrases. Okay, you know what word I'm trying to look for, right? That doesn't want to come out my mouth. But intuition clarifies. So I'm getting here that some of you may maybe be avoiding a conversation because your intuition is warning you. But Spirit says, look deeper. Is it your intuition or is it fear of vulnerability? Some of you, though, may maybe be receiving signs, dreams, synchronicities, and maybe a little bit of inner nudges. But because they don't make logical sense, maybe you're dismissing them. Like the High Priestess is coming through saying, your soul already knows what your mind keeps debating. Now, some of you have maybe spent years hiding parts of yourself. Maybe it's your gifts, your emotions, your spiritual experiences, your truth, because you fear judgment. So perhaps this month is asking, the shadow work is recognizing where self-protection became self-suppression. So what Spirit is saying is that your next chapter is going to require a visibility, no more hiding. So let's dive in further in the last card. How can you learn to sit with different emotions instead of avoiding them? All right? Which is very beautiful because we have the Chariot, which isn't the emotional suppression. It's the emotional mastery. Maybe many people will think strength means feeling. All right? Like a Spirit is saying, says true strength isn't feeling everything and still moving forward. Yeah. True strength is feeling everything and still moving forward. So the Chariot is showing two powerful forces pulling in off in two different directions, right? In opposite directions. And that's exactly what maybe you are experiencing, that one part of you wants growth, another part of you wants that safety. One part of you wants love, another part fears the heartbreak. One part of you wants expansion, the other part fears change. So perhaps the shadow work this month isn't choosing one side, right? Maybe it's learning to hold both. So some of you, maybe when sadness appears, you don't immediately distract yourself. Sit with it. Ask it, what is it trying to teach you? Every emotion carries information, right? Now some of you, maybe it's anger that appears, and I'm hearing don't shame yourself, explore it. Anger often protects wounds that we actually haven't yet acknowledged, right? Now some of you, maybe when fear appears, don't interpret it as a stop sign, right? Maybe fear often appears right before the growth. Because the Chariot says you don't need to eliminate the difficult emotions. You just need to learn how to drive while they still sit in the passenger seat. Right. So beautiful souls. My Pisces Aries Cuspers, I feel like June, even with the astrology of this month, feels deeply aligned with these cards. Like the month begins with Gemini entering Cancer, that's forming that healing aspects of Chiron, which creates these opportunities for the emotional conversations and deeper self-awareness. Now, around the 9th, right, we have Venus and Jupiter that meet in Cancer, which is next week. This is the heart expansion energy. It's actually a beautiful time for forgiveness, compassion, and emotional healing. And even with a Gemini, the new moon, that will be happening around the 15th, all right, it's opening up this new mental cycle. Maybe that many of you may suddenly gain clarity around a pattern that maybe you've been carrying for years. Then comes this powerful turning point when the Chiron is going to move into Taurus around the 19th June, which is going to be this collective healing around worthiness, security, self-value, and receiving. Exactly what is highlighting in this reading, right? Now, towards month end, we do again have that retrograde in Cancer. So all of this we've already discussed in our monthly reading, all right? Now we're just targeting the shadow aspects, all right? Expect old emotions, memories, conversations, healing around opportunities to resurface or to surface, okay? Some of you it will resurface, some of you it's new stuff, new opportunities for healing to surface. And what is happening, it's not coming through happening to punish you, but it's actually happening to free you. And even that Capricorn full moon on the 29th is just going to be asking, what are the emotional burdens that you finally are ready to release? So my Pisces Aries Cuspers, Spirit is actually showing me someone that's standing at the edge of a doorway. You've been there for a while, you see the next chapter, and you can actually feel the next version of your life or yourself that's busy calling, all right? But maybe you're still holding on to a few of these swords, all right? Still guarding the few old wounds, still listening to the old fears. And what Spirit is saying here is you don't need actually more wisdom, all right? You already have it. You don't need another sign, you already received it. You don't need permission, you already have it. So the transformation that you're seeking begins the moment that you stop fighting yourself, the moment that you trust what your soul already knows, the moment that you chose progress over the perfection. Because I'm hearing that June isn't asking you to become someone new, it's actually asking you to return to who you were before fear convinced you otherwise. So beautiful souls, if you feel like this message found you at the right time, perhaps you can comment, I release the old battle and trust my soul. And then thank you so much for liking, subscribing, and and sharing it with the other Pisces, Aries, Cuspers. And Spirit is saying here, they want you to remember that your shadow is not your enemy, all right? It is simply the part of you that one is waiting to be understood. So beautiful soul, I'll see you in the next reading. Thank you for being here again. I'm sending you extra love and light, and I'll check you around in the next one. Hey, Aries, Taurus, Cuspers, welcome in, beautiful souls. What if the biggest thing standing between you and your next breakthrough isn't fear, but maybe at the speed at which you've maybe been running from yourself? Because Spirit says June isn't asking you to move faster. It's actually asking you to understand what you've been trying to outrun. Let's dive in, beautiful souls, and dive into the first card here. What shadow work is needed to unlock the next phase of this transformation? Well, we do have the Knight of Swords here. This is the energy that's coming through, which is coming in quite fast. The Knight of Swords is very powerful, ambitious, determined, and very fearless. But in shadow work, well, the card asks a very different question, Why are you always moving? Like Spirit is immediately showing someone staying busy because stillness feels maybe a little bit uncomfortable. Maybe you tell yourself you're focused, productive, driven, always working towards something, But underneath the movement, there may be emotions maybe you've never fully stopped to process. So perhaps the shadow work this month is recognizing where action has become avoidance. Maybe some of you have mastered moving forward, but you haven't mastered sitting with what's behind you. Beautiful souls, thank you for hitting the like button and leaving comments. Now, I feel like some of you, I've got 3 scenarios coming through here. So scenario 1 is maybe you jump into the next goal before celebrating the last one, or maybe you achieve something significant, yet instead of maybe feeling fulfilled, you already focused on the next mountain, all right? And what Spirit is saying, you're chasing validation that no achievement can permanently provide. Now, the second scenario, remember to take what resonates, leave the rest. This is just some scenarios coming up to help you out here. Some of you maybe move quickly through relationships, not because you're reckless, because vulnerability feels slower than action. Maybe it's just easier to make decisions than to sit with the uncertainty. But like maybe June is just asking you to explore what happens when you don't immediately react. Scenario 3 I'm getting is some of you maybe feeling are maybe a little bit mentally exhausted. The mind just never stops, right? the overthinking, the analyzing, the planning, the preparing. The Knight of Swords says maybe your mind has become your safe place. Like maybe your healing just requires reconnecting with the heart too. But Spirit's saying that your transformation does begin when you stop treating every emotion like a problem to solve, but maybe some feelings maybe simply just need to be felt, just pause and feel the feelings. So what beliefs or patterns from your past are influencing your present? Well, interesting, we do have the sun. It's like very fascinating that the sun came out, because I feel like most people see the sun as entirely positive, right? But perhaps the shadow work here reveals something a little bit deeper. What Spirit is saying maybe that many of the Aries, Taurus, Cuspers have learned very early that being strong, positive, successful, or capable earned love and approval. Like you became the bright one, the dependable one, the resilient one, right? The one who always found a way forward. But maybe the shadow side of the sun asks you, what parts of yourself were taught not to show? Maybe some of you struggle asking for help. Somewhere in your past, strength became your identity. Now, vulnerability feels a little bit unfamiliar. Maybe some of you feel pressure to always be okay, even when you're hurting. You smile, you reassure everyone else, and you carry the emotional weight silently. And what Spirit is saying is maybe your inner child may have learned that difficult emotions made others maybe uncomfortable, and maybe you just learn to hide them. And then some of you are still seeking a recognition after you received, right? Not because you're needy, but because maybe your younger version of you wanted to feel seen, wanted acknowledgement, wanted validation. And the sun reveals that beautiful truth that you no longer need that external approval to confirm your worth, right? That your worth was never dependent upon their performance. So this month is just asking you to stop performing happiness and start practicing authenticity. Because the true healing begins when you allow yourself, your whole self to exist, not just the bright parts. So let's have a look at your third card. How can you learn to sit with the difficult emotions instead of avoiding them, all right? So this card is also another surprise coming through, because Spirit is asking you to become, Spirit isn't asking you to become an emotional expert overnight, all right? The Page of Wands approaches emotions with curiosity, not judgment, not fear, just curiosity, This month, instead of asking, how do you get rid of this feeling? Maybe try asking, what is this feeling trying to teach me? Like the page reminds us that every emotional experience is actually information. When frustration appears, maybe just get a little bit curious, right? What boundary needs attention? What desire isn't being honored, right? Or being honored. Scenario 2, I feel like when sadness appears, I'm hearing explore it gently. Like not everything needs immediate fixing, right? And maybe sometimes sadness arrives to help us just release what we've outgrown. And perhaps now some of you here, the last scenario I'm getting for this card here is when fear appears, maybe approach it like an explorer, like ask the questions, investigate. Fear often points towards areas where growth is trying to happen, right? So what Spirit is saying, your emotions is not your enemies. They're actually messengers. So the Page of Wands teaches the emotional exploration rather than the emotional avoidance, that you don't have to have all the answers. You just simply need to stay open to the discovery. So my Aries, Taurus, Cuspers, I feel like June's astrology is perfectly aligned with this reading. This month began with Mercury moving into Cancer, encouraging the emotional awareness and honest conversations. And we're going to be having that powerful Venus-Jupiter conjunction around the 9th, which creates this opportunity for heart healing, self-worth work, and the emotional expansion. And then we're going to be having that Gemini new moon on the 15th, which will open like a brand new chapter around communication, perspective shifts, and self-discovery. Then the major collective shift which will occur will be that Chiron that's moving from Aries into Taurus around the 19th. This is going to be especially important for your cusp, right? Because it's going to be themes around self-worth, security, value, confidence, and healing old wounds that is surrounding stability that will become quite highlighted. And it's going to be different for each and every one of you, right? That you may even suddenly become aware of patterns that maybe you've carried for years. Not to judge yourself, but to heal them. So I feel like towards the end of June, Mercury is, towards the end of June, all right, Mercury will turn retrograde in Cancer, which I feel like those old emotions are going to resurface, all right? It's a possibility. With each of you, obviously, it's going to be different, all right, depending all on your charts. But we're getting more or less an idea of what could possibly be happening, all right? Maybe it's going to be old conversations that return. Maybe it could be old memories that you may revisit your awareness. What Spirit is saying, don't resist the process, all right? Whatever's happening, these aren't setbacks. They're just the unfinished chapters, just seeking that final closure, all right? And the Capricorn full moon on the 29th will just eliminate what no longer is sustainable. And then, as we all know already by now, that Jupiter is entering Leo on the 30th, which brings that brand new cycle of self-expression, confidence, creativity, and personal empowerment. So while my Aries Taurus cusp is like, Spirit is just showing me that someone here is standing in the field before the sunrise, all right? You've spent so much time moving, so much time building, so much time providing, so much time carrying responsibilities that now your soul's just asking for something a little bit different. No, not more effort, not more pushing. It's just, and also no more providing or proving, healing. That's what that's your soul's asking for, something different, as healing. Because the strongest thing that you can do right now is to stop running from what actually needs your attention. The emotions that maybe you have been avoiding aren't here to break you, they're just here to guide you. The truth maybe that you've been resisting isn't here to hurt you, it's here to actually set you free, it's here to free you. And I feel like with the version of you waiting on the other side of this shadow work is that you're actually stronger than you realize, softer than you actually expected. And the more authentic, you'll be more authentic than ever before. And what Spirit is saying here, you don't need to become someone else, all right? You don't need to change your core. You simply just need to stop abandoning parts of yourself that actually deserves love too, So beautiful souls, if this message found you at exactly the right time, perhaps you can comment, I stop running and I start healing. If this resonated, thank you so much for letting me know and liking, commenting, big subscribers here. And just remember, Soul Tribe, your shadow isn't proof that you're actually broken. It's just proof that there's still parts of you that are waiting to come home. So beautiful souls, I'll see you in the next one. Love and light, and I'll check you around. Hey, Taurus, Gemini Cuspers. What if the breakthrough you've been waiting for isn't delayed? What if Spirit has been asking you to stop looking ahead just for a moment, and finally just look back, because June's shadow work isn't about what's coming next. It's actually about understanding what still needs healing from where you've already been. Looking at your first card, what shadow work is needed to unlock your next phase is of personal transformation. And my Taurus, Gemini Cuspers, I feel like the energy of this card here with the Seven of Pentacles, it feels like someone standing in a garden. They've already worked very hard to grow. You've planted the seeds, you've put in the effort, you've done the healing, you've shown up. And yet, there's a part of you maybe wondering, when is it finally going to happen? When will it all pay off? And Spirit is just saying the shadow work isn't here about working harder. It's about examining your relationship with timing, because some of you are carrying maybe some sort of frustration that life isn't moving as fast enough. Others are maybe carrying some sort of disappointment because reality doesn't look exactly how maybe you imagined it would be by now. So the shadow work isn't impatience, right? The shadow work is like believing that maybe your progress only matters when visible results arrive. I feel like some of you have been healing for years. You're different, that you've grown, but yet because you're not where you want to be, you're dismiss how far you've come, right? So what Spirit is saying that maybe some of you are just measuring your life against the destination instead of honoring the journey. Thank you for hitting the like button, beautiful souls, and leaving comments. I really appreciate it. I'm hearing also some of you are digging up your own seeds. Maybe you start something, you get excited, then you doubt what appears, all right? You wonder if it's working, you question the progress, you maybe abandon it before it has time to bloom. So perhaps the Seven of Pentacles is asking some of you, can you trust what is growing beneath the surface? Maybe some of you are even exhausted because you've tied your self-worth to productivity. You're not achieving something, building something, or the accomplishing something, and then if you're not doing these things, then you feel guilty. And what Spirit is saying that healing this month involves learning that your value isn't based on the output, right? That maybe you are worthy even during the seasons of waiting, and the transformation happens when you maybe stop rushing the harvest. So what beliefs or patterns from your past are maybe influencing your present? So we have the Three of Pentacles. So this card immediately brings up a powerful theme around validation, recognition, being seen, being appreciated. And what Spirit is showing me here is many of the Taurus and Gemini Cuspers maybe have learned very early that achievement created connection. You may have maybe received praise when you performed well, when you succeeded, or when you helped others, when you were useful. So maybe the shadow pattern here is that maybe you unconsciously believe that you earn your place, earn acceptance, earn love, earn belonging. Now, some of you, maybe you tend to overgive in relationships. You become the helper, the fixer, the reliable one, because maybe somewhere deep down inside, being needed became connected to being valued. Maybe even some of you struggle receiving support rather than doing everything yourself. Not because you incapable of accepting help. Maybe you're depending on others, depending on other feelings vulnerable, depending on others' feelings regarding vulnerability. All right. Okay. Some of you, I feel like, are constantly seeking feedback where trusting your own decisions, you want reassurance, approval, confirmation, but Spirit is saying this isn't actually weakness. Maybe it's just a pattern that's rooted in old experiences where external validation became more familiar than the self-validation. So perhaps the Three of Pentacles is asking, what would happen if you trusted your own wisdom first? Because maybe June is just teaching you that your worth isn't earned through performance, it's inherited. You've always had it, all right? So let's have a look at the last card here, is how can you learn to sit with the difficult emotions instead of avoiding them? And Six of Cups here, it feels deeply emotional, right? That maybe many of you, Spirit is guiding you towards your inner child. Six of Cups says difficult emotions often don't belong only to the present moment. Sometimes they just echoes, like old feelings, old wounds, old unmet needs asking to be acknowledged. So perhaps the shadow work here isn't about avoiding the feeling, it's asking, where did the feeling actually begin? So maybe some of you, you felt rejected by someone, but the emotional reaction feels actually much bigger than the situation itself. What Spirit says, maybe the old wound may be just asking for attention. A younger version of you may still be carrying some sort of pain. Maybe some of you have experienced loneliness, not because you're alone, but maybe because part of you feels unseen. So perhaps the Six of Cups is coming through to ask some of you to nurture that younger part instead of criticizing it. Now, the last one, I'm getting that maybe some of you immediately distract yourselves when emotions surface, like scrolling, working, overthinking, staying busy, So maybe the card is saying, healing happens when you become curious about your emotions instead of escaping them. So maybe it's time to ask yourself, like, what memories does this feeling remind me of? Or what part of me needs compassion right now? what am I truly feeling beneath the surface? So what Spirit is saying maybe is your emotions became less overwhelming when you feel heard. So the Six of Cups is just like, it reminds you that healing often looks like giving yourself what you once actually needed. So my Taurus, Gemini Cuspers, I mean, if we're just looking at the astrology, I know we did the full monthly reading, but just to bring it back to this shadow work that's happening in June, so everything fits, is that June's astrology actually beautifully mirrors this reading. And the reason why I'm saying is, as we know, as Mercury entering Cancer, which is encouraging that emotional reflection and deeper conversations, right? Maybe many of you find old memories resurfacing, not because you're moving backwards, but maybe because you are ready to understand them a little bit differently. And even in the next few days, we have a Venus-Jupiter conjunction around the 9th, which is going to be bringing some sort of healing opportunities around self-worth, relationships, and emotional balance. And even that new moon in Gemini, that will be on the 15th, it's going to become especially important for your cusp energy. The reason why I'm saying is the new moon is going to invite you for a fresh chapter around identity, mindset, communication, and self-trust. So perhaps the major turning point is going to be arriving around the 19th when Chiron moves from Aries into Taurus, right? The collective healing energy centered around self-worth, security, stability, and value. Themes that connect deeply with the Seven of Pentacles and the Three of Pentacles. You may become aware of where you've been measuring your worth through productivity or external approval. So maybe towards month's end, the Mercury retrograde begins in Cancer, right? Yeah, that's when it begins. Regarding maybe old emotions, old conversations, old memories, old relationships, those kind of things might just surface, all right, resurface. And Spirit's saying these aren't interruptions, they're just invitations. Invitations to finally heal what was never fully processed. The Capricorn moon around the 29th, the full moon, right, is going to bring some sort of powerful emotional release around maybe expectations, achievements, long-term goals. And as we all know, the Jupiter entering Leo around the 30th, right, is bringing some sort of brand new chapter of confidence, self-expression, and heart-centered growth. So while my Taurus, Gemini Cuspers, I feel like Spirit is showing me a beautiful garden here. At first look, it's quiet. Not dramatic. Nothing dramatic is actually happening. Nothing seems to be changing. But underneath that soil, all right, life is everywhere. The roots are expanding. Growth is happening. Transformation is unfolding. And Spirit says that's exactly where many of you are right now. Maybe you've been judging yourself based on on what you can see. But your soul's been growing in ways that maybe you haven't even fully recognized. The healing, the lessons, the wisdom, the resilience. None of that was wasted. I feel like this month is just asking you to stop questioning whether you're growing and just start trusting, what you've already become. Because the version of you that once needed constant validation is learning self-trust. That version of you that once rushed every progress, it's learning patience. The version of you that maybe once avoided difficult emotions, it's learning compassion. And that's where your next breakthrough begins. So beautiful souls, if this message found you exactly at the right time, perhaps you can affirm and comment, I trust my growth even when I can't see it. You trust your growth even when you cannot see it. Thank you for liking, subscribing, commenting. And remember, beautiful soul, my Taurus, Gemini Cusper, not every transformation announces itself loudly, right? Some of the most powerful growth happens quietly beneath the surface. And one day you're going to be looking back and realizing the season you thought nothing was actually happening was actually the season everything was changing. So beautiful soul, I'm sending you love and light, and I'll definitely check you out in the next one. Hey, Gemini, Cancer, Cuspers. What if the biggest thing standing between you and your next transformation isn't fear? It isn't failure. It isn't even your past. What if it's a story maybe you've been caring about who you're supposed to be? Because Spirit says June is the month maybe you stop living by old rules that just no longer fit the person that you're becoming. Let's look at the first card regarding the shadow work that is needed to unlock your next phase of your personal transformation, well, we do have the Hierophant that is reversed here, and my Gemini Cancer Cuspers, this card I feel like is coming out with very powerful energy. The Hierophant reversed isn't rebellion, right, for the sake of rebellion. It's like questioning beliefs maybe you've inherited, rules you've followed, expectations you've expected or accepted, without asking whether they actually belong to you. So what Spirit is like immediately showing here is someone standing at crossroads. One path feels familiar, the other path feels authentic. And maybe perhaps Juno's is asking you, which one are you choosing? Because the shadow work here involves recognizing where maybe you've been living according to other people's definitions of success, love, spirituality, happiness, or maybe even worthiness. So I'm getting here that some of you maybe were like taught there is only one right way to live, like one right relationship, one right career, one right path. Yet maybe your soul keeps pulling you somewhere different. And Spirit's like saying this discomfort that you're feeling may not be because you're lost. It may be because maybe you outgrowing some sort of old conditioning. And then I think some of you, I feel like, are carrying some sort of guilt around wanting something different from what others expect of you. Maybe your family wanted one version of your life, your soul wanted another. So the Hierophant is just saying that maybe healing begins when you stop asking permission to be yourself. And maybe perhaps some of you, all right, is that you've outgrown some sort of spiritual belief, habit, or identity that once served you. But maybe releasing them feels uncomfortable because familiar beliefs can feel safe even when they no longer support your growth. So I'm hearing here Spirit saying the next phase of your transformation requires authenticity over the approval. The shadow isn't being difficult or different, right? The shadow is abandoning yourself to fit in. So let's have a look at card 2. We have the Six of Swords regarding what belief or pattern your past are influencing. What is your past, your patterns, right? Influencing your current present. And this card feels deeply connected to the emotional survival. So what Spirit's showing me, maybe like someone who learned to keep moving, keep going, to leave difficult situations behind, to focus on what comes next. While that resilience maybe helped you survive, it may have also taught you to disconnect from what you're feeling. And the Six of Swords often appears when we've mastered the escaping discomfort. But maybe you haven't always mastered processing it. So if some of you, maybe you may have learned to leave situations emotionally before they actually ended. Like if a relationship began to feel difficult or friendship became uncomfortable, a challenge appears, and a part of you immediately starts looking for the exit. Not because you're weak, but because maybe leaving once felt safer than staying. And then for some of you, this could be because some of you became independent at a very young age, all right? That you learned to handle things yourself. You learned not to burden others. You learned how to keep moving no matter what happened. But the strength may be making it a bit difficult to receive support. Now, some of you, scenario 3, is that maybe you may have noticed that whenever painful emotions arise, you maybe immediately shift into problem-solving mode, right? You want solutions, answers, a plan, and the shadow pattern here may be just believing healing only happens by moving forward, you know? And what Spirit is saying, sometimes healing happens by sitting long enough to understand what have you been carrying, or what are you carrying. So the Six of Swords is like revealing that you've maybe become incredibly skilled at surviving. Now your soul's like wanting to learn how to truly heal. Your third card, the Fool. How can you learn to sit with the difficult emotions instead of avoiding them? And this is quite a beautiful card. The reason why I'm saying is Spirit is saying you became perfect at emotional processing. The Fool invites something a little bit more simpler, right? Curiosity, openness, trust. Maybe many people think sitting with emotions means analyzing them endlessly, but the Fool says, what if you simply experience them? What if you simply just experience them, right? Without judgment, without needing to immediately understand them, without maybe trying to control them. You know, when sadness appears, don't immediately label it as a problem, right? Get curious. What is it actually trying to show you? What part of yourself actually needs compassion? Now, for some of you, when fear appears, I'm hearing approach it with beginner's eyes, all right? Instead of asking, how do I make this go away? Perhaps it's time to ask, what opportunity might exist on the other side of this fear? You know, when uncertainty appears, all right, maybe it's time to stop demanding certainty before taking the next step. Because the Fool does remind you that growth often begins before clarity arrives. Spirit says your emotions are not obstacles blocking your path. They're guides that is helping you discover it. The Fool teaches trust. Trusting in your feelings. Trusting in the journey. Trusting in your journey, you know. Trusting that you don't need every answer before taking the next step. So my Gemini Cancer Cuspers, I feel like even with the June astrology, all right, it feels perfectly aligned with these messages, you know. The month began with the Mercury entering Cancer June 1st, right? And that immediately shifts the attention towards the emotional awareness, the inner reflection, the memories, the heartfelt conversations. And the powerful Venus-Jupiter conjunctions that is happening in Cancer as well, the ninth, is creating some sort of opportunities for emotional healing and the greater self-compassion. Now, next, also what's going to be most important for moments for your cusp energy is going to be that Gemini new moon around the 15th, where that moon is going to be inviting you to maybe rewrite the old narratives and begin a fresh chapter around the identity and self-expression. Exactly what the Hierophant reversed is asking you, right? The old story no longer fits. A new one is actually ready to emerge. And also, Chiron will be also entering Taurus. This is Taurus energy, all right? Around the 19th. Healing shifts towards themes about your self-worth, security, and your authenticity. Maybe many of you began recognizing where you've been seeking the external approval instead of honoring your own worth or your own truth. And maybe perhaps towards the end of the month, when Mercury goes retrograde in Cancer, some of you may experience old memories, old emotions, old conversations, old versions of yourself that may just resurface, not to trap you in the past, right, but to show you how much you've actually grown. And even that Capricorn full moon on the 29th is going to be eliminating emotional patterns that maybe you've outgrown and is encouraging you some sort of powerful release. And also that big one that's happening, and everyone's talking about, the Jupiter that will be entering Leo on the 30th, is going to be bringing the bold new cycles regarding confidence, creativity, visibility, and self-expression. So while my Cancer, Gemini Cuspers, I feel like Spirit is showing me here, what they are showing me is someone removing a mask, not because the mask was bad, not because it was false, but because you've simply outgrown it. For so long, maybe you've been carrying the expectations, the roles, the identities, the beliefs, the stories, some inherited, some learned, some adopted for survival. But June is asking one powerful question. Who are you when nobody else's expectations are speaking? Who are you when nobody else's expectations are speaking? Who are you when you stop performing and start listening to your soul? Because the truth is, you've already begun changing. You've already begun awakening. You've already begun resisting what no longer belongs to you. So perhaps the discomfort you're feeling isn't the sign that you lost, right? It's a sign that you're transforming. What Spirit is also saying is like an old version of you was built on to survive, but the new version of you is learning how to thrive. The bridge between the two versions is self-trust, trusting your intuition, trusting your truth, trusting the path your soul is choosing, even when it looks different from everyone else's. So beautiful souls, perhaps you can claim this and say, like, I release the old story and trust my soul's path. Thank you for liking the video, leaving comments, being subscribers here. And just remember, beautiful soul, is, not every ending is a loss, right? Sometimes an ending is simply the moment that you stop being who you had to be and start becoming who you truly are. I'll check you around the next one. Love and light, beautiful. Hey, Cancer, Leo, Cuspers, welcome in, beautiful souls. What if the wound you've been trying to heal isn't actually what is holding you back? What if it's just the story maybe you've been telling yourself about a wound? Because Spirit says June isn't about reopening old pain. It's about finally seeing clearly enough to release its power over you. So let's dive in. What shadow work is needed to unlock your next phase of this personal transformation? And Spirit gave us the Ace of Swords, right? So this card is like entering your reading like a lightning bulb, all right? Like the Ace of Swords is truth, it's clarity, it's breakthrough, it's awakening. Like the shadow work asks for that. It asks that uncomfortable question, like, what truth have you been avoiding? So what Spirit is immediately showing me that maybe many of you are standing at the edge of a realization you've maybe sensed a long time. You already know, you already feel it, right? But maybe admitting it would change just everything, Perhaps the shadow work this month is not discovering the truth. It's maybe allowing yourself to acknowledge the truth that's already been whispering to you. Now, some of you, maybe it's a relationship dynamic that has changed. Like maybe you hoping things will return to the way they maybe once were, but maybe your soul already knows the truth. Like Spirit is saying this clarity is not cruelty, right? Clarity is freedom. Now, some of you, maybe you've outgrown a version of yourself, a role, a job, a dream, an identity, yet maybe you holding on because it once felt meaningful. So the Ace of Swords says growth sometimes requires honest endings. Then some of you, I feel like you maybe keep doubting your intuition. You receive those signs, you feel that nudges, you sense what is happening, then your mind talks you out of it, all right? And what Spirit's saying, maybe your breakthrough begins when you stop asking everyone else what you already know. The Ace of Swords is cutting through the illusion, right? And June is bringing that powerful moment of clarity, not to hurt you, but to liberate you. So then the belief or pattern from your past are influencing your present. Three of Swords. This card carries that deep emotional, mental wisdom, right? Because Swords is mental, heartbreak. And this isn't just about heartbreak. It's about the protective pattern that heartbreak creates, right? So perhaps Spirit is saying that many of you, Spirit's coming through, that perhaps many of you are still carrying that emotional armor that was built during some sort of painful season of your life, right? And maybe while all that armor once protected you, it may now be preventing some sort of a deeper healing. Perhaps someone disappointed you, betrayed your trust, rejected your vulnerability. And then since then, maybe you've learned to keep certain parts to yourself, that you kept it hidden, right? So certain parts of yourself hidden. Not because you don't want the connection, because maybe part of you fears experiencing the pain again. And then some of you are maybe consciously expecting some sort of disappointment, right? Even when good things are happening. Maybe you prepare for the loss before the time arrives, all right? Loss before loss actually arrives. And maybe you anticipate rejection before anyone else rejects you. And this isn't necessarily negativity, Spirit is saying. It's the self-protection that became the habit. Now, for some of you also is that you still may be grieving something maybe you never acknowledged. It could be a relationship, a dream, an opportunity, a version of yourself. The pain may have happened actually years ago, but maybe the emotional imprint still influences your present-day choices. So the Three of Swords is just asking you, are you making decisions based on your current reality, or are you making decisions based on old wounds? Because there's a difference, right? June wants to help you recognize it, all right? Let's have a look at card 3. We have this beautiful Nine of Cups. how you can learn to sit with the difficult emotions instead of avoiding them. So this card is quite a surprise coming out in this position of this question, is because I'm hearing many people see the Nine of Cups, okay, because the Nine of Cups is actually that wish fulfillment, all right? That's the Nine of Cups, happiness, contentment. But this is shadow work we're talking about. So Spirit is highlighting the emotional acceptance, the ability to be with yourself, to enjoy your own company, to create the safety within. So I feel like many of the Cancer, Leo Cuspers, maybe many of you seek comfort outside of yourself when difficult emotions appear. Perhaps it's validation, maybe it's distractions, achievements, attention, reassurance. But the Nine of Cups says, can you become the source of what you're actually seeking? Perhaps when sadness appears, instead of immediately seeking someone else to make you feel better, maybe spend time understanding what you need emotionally. Perhaps even some of you, when loneliness appears, you ask yourself whether you're craving connection with others or reconnection with yourself. Maybe some of you, when insecurity appears, you notice how quickly you seek the external confirmation. The Nine of Cups talks about that true emotional mastery that begins when you sense of worth, right, isn't dependent upon someone else's response. So perhaps Spirit is saying that what they're coming through is saying is difficult emotions become easier to hold when you trust yourself to meet them with compassion. The goal isn't perfectionism. The goal is more the emotional self-trust, learning that no feeling is too big for your heart to actually hold. So my Cancer, Leo Cuspers, even the astrology this month, right, that we've already spoke about in the main reading, all right, your monthly reading. And it actually aligns with these three cards regarding the shadow work that you need to do this month, or that you've been encouraged or advised to do, all right? With Mercury that is entering Cancer on the 1st, right, that will already happen by the time you receive this. It's the energy that is immediately activating the emotional awareness and memories and inner reflection. And it supports the Ace of Swords energy by helping you, helping hidden truths rise into consciousness, all right, awareness. And then even on the 9th, all right, we have that Venus, Jupiter united in Cancer, all right. This one is going to be the most healing energies of the month. The reason why I'm saying is many of you may just experience breakthroughs involving forgiveness, self-worth, family dynamics, emotional healing. And even that Gemini new moon around the 15th is going to create some sort of powerful reset around thought patterns and perspectives. Like new understanding arrives, new insights emerge, and then we got that Chiron that will be entering Taurus around the 19th. There's going to be some sort of shift that highlights healing around self-worth, security, and value. I feel like themes directly connected to the emotional wounds are really represented by the Three of Swords, right? And even like when Cancer season comes in around the 21st, all right? This is going to be your energetic new year, right? For your Cancer side. That a time when emotions, intuition, healing, and self-worth, nurturing become especially important. You know, towards the end of the month, you know, we have that Mercury retrograde in Cancer. So the possibilities of that old emotions are going to resurface, old memories may return, old conversations may revisit your awareness. And Spirit saying these experiences are not setbacks. They're actually opportunities to see the old wounds through new eyes, you know. And even that Capricorn full moon on the 29th, it's going to eliminate relationship dynamics and the emotional patterns that are ready for release. And we do have that beautiful Gemini, Gemini could be really significant. Maybe you have Gemini in your top 3 or another person Gemini. But interesting that I said that. But Jupiter, what I'm trying to say here is the big one is Jupiter enters Leo, right? The 30th, which we all know by now, right? It's happening. It's all over social media. Which is opening a brand new cycle regarding confidence, self-expression, creativity, and personal empowerment. And it's going to be a beautiful beginning after a month of this profound healing that is happening. So while my Cancer Leo Cuspers, what Spirit is saying here is someone is standing before a mirror. They're actually showing me this happening, and then they're looking at the reflection and looking through it and finally seeing themselves clearly. The wounds, the victories, the fears, the strength, all right, the truth, all of it. And Spirit says that your next breakthrough isn't hidden outside of you. It's actually found in that radical honesty with yourself. The truth that you've been avoiding is actually not your enemy. It's actually your doorway. The heartbreak that you've been carrying is actually not your identity. It's actually part of your story. The emotions that you've maybe been carrying to escape are not here to drown you. They're here to teach you. Because I'm hearing June is not a month of punishment, right? It's a month of revelation. Yeah, I hope that's right. The month of emotional liberation, a month of remembering who you are actually beneath every disappointment you've ever survived. So what Spirit says here is that you're not the wound. You are the healer. You are not the heartbreak. You are the heart that keeps beating afterwards. So while beautiful souls, and I'm hearing you are far more powerful than the pain that you've endured. Perhaps you can acclaim this in the comments or to yourself. I choose truth, healing, and emotional freedom. Thank you for liking this video, leaving comments, being subscribers, and just remember, beautiful soul, the truth may break an illusion, but it'll never break your soul. Sometimes the clearest path forward begins the moment you willing to see things exactly as they are. And I'll check you around the next one. Love and light, beautiful. Hey, Leo, Virgo Cuspers. What if the thing standing between you and your next blessing isn't a lack of opportunity, but maybe your fear of fully receiving what you've already asked for? Because Spirit says June isn't about chasing more. It's about uncovering why part of you still believes you have to earn what is already meant for you. So let's dive into your cards here, beautiful soul. What shadow work is needed to unlock your next phase of your personal transformation? In the month of June, we have the beautiful Nine of Cups here. And this card may be seeming surprisingly that it's in a shadow work reading. After all, the Nine of Cups is called the wish fulfillment card, right? The card of satisfaction, the card of emotional abundance, the card of dreams coming true. But Spirit says the shadow here isn't about lacking blessings. It's about your relationship perhaps with receiving them. Because I feel like maybe some of you have spent so much time, so much of your life, right? Striving, fixing, improving, achieving, and proving yourself that maybe you've forgotten how to simply just receive, So perhaps the shadow work this month asks, what happens when you finally get what you've been actually asking for? Maybe some of you have dreamt about some of your dreams. Some of you have a dream that's really getting closer. All right. Maybe it's a relationship, an opportunity, or maybe it's a financial breakthrough. Maybe it's a spiritual awakening. Yet every time it approaches, fear appears. Not because you don't want it. Maybe it's because receiving it would require you to become visible, to trust, to let go of the old survival habits. If my voice sounds a bit funny, I do have a bit of a flu and my nose is congested, my whole sinus area. But with the vitamin C's and all the things in the body fighting it off, I'll be good in the next few days. So if my voice sounds a bit weird and I'm nasally, I do apologize. Some of you, I feel like, you struggle celebrating your wins. That the moment something good happens, you already focused on what is missing. Like maybe it's the next goal, the next problem, the next improvement, So what Spirit says that this pattern that's keeping you disconnected from gratitude and emotional fulfillment, this is that pattern that's keeping you from that. Then for some of you, you could secretly believe happiness maybe is temporary, that if you enjoy something maybe too much, it might be taken away. So you maybe stay a little bit emotionally guarded. But the Nine of Cups is saying also that you can allow yourself to experience joy without the immediate preparing for that disappointment, because I'm hearing that your next transformation isn't about getting more. It's more about allowing yourself to fully experience what is already here. So let's look at card 2, which is the Empress. What belief or pattern from your past are influencing your present? So the Empress, which is quite a powerful card coming through, because it speaks about nurturing, abundance, creativity, self-worth, and that unconditional love, like the mother energy, right? So, but in shadow work, Spirit is showing the relationship maybe you developed with giving. Maybe some of you Leo Virgo Cuspers have learned to become the caretakers, the providers, the protectors, the dependable one who holds everything together, right? And while those qualities are beautiful, they may come sometimes at a cost. Some of you may have learned that your value came from how much you gave to others, how helpful you were, or how responsible you were, or how much you actually sacrificed. Now, maybe the struggle will be receiving because giving feels safer. Perhaps some of you grew up feeling responsible for other people's emotions. You became the peacekeeper, right? The nurturer, the fixer. And then as a result, maybe you learned to prioritize everyone else's needs above your own. Maybe some of you are carrying a belief that self-care is selfish, that resting is lazy, that putting yourself first somehow means you're letting others down. But Spirit is saying that belief is not your truth, right? Because the Empress reminds you that healthy and nurturing also includes yourself. So maybe the lesson here is learning that your worth is not measured by how much you sacrifice. You are worthy because you exist, not because of what you do for others. Now, looking at your last card here, we have the Four of Pentacles. How can you learn to sit with the difficult emotions instead of avoiding them? So this card immediately highlights the emotional protection, all right? Where Spirit may be saying that, that they're actually saying that many of you have become experts at holding everything together, keeping it together, managing it, containing it, controlling it. Like the Four of Pentacles says, like, what are you afraid of that will happen if you let yourself feel? Because the difficult emotions aren't necessarily being avoided, they being tightly controlled. There may be some of you internalize your emotions, intellectualize, I think that, excuse if I didn't pronounce that correctly, your emotions, to understand them, analyze them, explain them, but really allowing yourself to fully experience them. And then some of you appear incredibly strong on the outside. People see your confidence, your stability, the resilience. But privately, there are feelings maybe you've kept away, locked for years, right? So what Spirit's saying is strength isn't the emotional suppression, right? Strength is actually the emotional honesty. Now, also for some of you, maybe it's the fear, you fear vulnerability because maybe past experiences taught you that openness led to disappointment, so you protect yourself. Maybe the problem is that the wars keeping pain out may also be keeping healing out for some of you. Like the Four of Pentacles, you don't have to release everything at once. You don't have to force vulnerability. But healing begins when you loosen your grip enough just to allow the emotions to move through you instead of staying trapped inside, right? So my Leo Virgo Cuspers, thank you for liking the video and being part of the Mystical Wolf Soul Tribe here and leaving comments. And even with the June's astrology, right, it feels deeply connected to this reading, right? That the month did begin already with the Mercury entering Cancer, which brought some sort of emotional awareness, encouraging that deeper reflection around your inner world. But now we also do have the Venus-Jupiter conjunction around the 9th, which is creating some beautiful opportunities for heart healing, self-worth work, emotional expansion, that maybe many of you might just realize actually how often maybe you've minimized your own needs while carrying everyone else's. And even that Gemini new moon around the 15th is inviting some sort of new perspective around self-worth, communication, personal growth. Then there is going to be a major collective shift which will occur around the 19th when Chiron moves from Aries into Taurus. And this is where healing energy is going to focus on your worthiness, your security, receiving and self-value. exactly the themes that's reflected here from the Nine of Cups and also the Empress, right? And Cancer season, which begins the 21st, drawing attention towards the emotional nourishment and self-care. So what Spirit is saying, this is not a month to push harder. Maybe it's a month to just listen deeper, and especially towards the end of June, Mercury is going retrograde in Cancer. Old emotions, memories, old relationship dynamics, old patterns around giving and receiving, those things might just come up to resurface, not to overwhelm you or to fear you, but to maybe help you finally understand them. And even with the Cancer full moon that we're having the 20th, which will eventually, the Capricorn full moon on the 29th, which will come in to eliminate where maybe over responsibility, perfectionism, or emotional control are no longer serving your highest good. And don't forget that Jupiter entering Leo on the 30th, which is going to be opening a powerful new cycle of confidence, visibility, creativity, joy, and self-expression. Just a reminder that, your light was actually never meant to stay hidden, So my Leo Virgo Cuspers, I feel like Spirit here is showing me someone carrying a beautiful golden cup, all right, overflowing with blessings, love, wisdom, healing, joy, and abundance. But instead of drinking from it, maybe they're so busy making sure everyone else has enough. But Spirit says, hey, you've spent so much time being strong, so much time being dependable, so much time carrying responsibilities that maybe that is time that it's not time, it's just that you have forgotten something important that you deserve to receive to. And it's time that you realize that you deserve to receive to, you deserve to rest, you deserve some support, you deserve joy, you deserve the experience that the abundance that you've worked hard to create. Because your next transformation isn't about becoming more worthy, right? You already are. It's just about believing it. So what Spirit is saying, the walls maybe that you've built around your heart were never wrong. They protected you when protection was necessary. But I'm hearing now that your soul's actually asking for something a little bit different. Not more protection, but more trust, more openness, more receiving, more love. The blessings that you've been asking for is actually closer than you think. But I'm hearing, first, you must believe you're allowed to have them. So beautiful souls, if this message found you at the right time, perhaps you can affirm, I am worthy of receiving the blessings that are meant for me. You are worthy of receiving the blessings that are meant for you. Thank you for liking, subscribing, leaving comments. And remember, beautiful soul tribe, sometimes the greatest act of healing isn't learning how to give more. It's learning how to finally receive. It's your turn. I'm sending you love and light, and I'll check you around in the next one. Hey, Virgo, Libra, Cuspers. What if the thing draining your energy isn't what you're carrying, but maybe who you've been carrying it for? Because Spirit's saying June isn't the month you stop abandoning yourself to keep everyone else comfortable. And that realization may just change everything. Let's dive in. Thank you for being here. Thank you for hitting that like button and leaving comments. So the shadow work needed to unlock your next phase of your personal transformation is the Six of Pentacles. And this card is immediately highlighting the balance between giving and receiving. And Spirit says this isn't about just money. All right. It's also about your energy, your time, your love, attention, support, care. The shadow work this month centers around a powerful question. Have you been giving from abundance? Have you been giving from abundance? Or have you been giving from obligation? Because maybe many of you have become so accustomed to being the helper, the peacemaker, the problem solver, the dependable one, that maybe you lost track of maybe your own needs. Some of you have constantly shown up for everyone else. You answer the calls, you offer support, you give advice, you make sacrifices. Yet when you need help, you hesitate to ask. And Spirit says this imbalance is not sustainable. Then some of you maybe are giving in relationships where the energy is just no longer mutual because you may be unaware. Because a part of you believes that love must be earned through effort. So what the Six of Pentacles says here, that what would happen if you stopped proving your worth through giving? And then some of you, maybe you feel responsible for fixing problems that aren't even yours to fix, holding space for everyone else's healing while quietly neglecting your own. And Spirit saying your next transformation is going to begin when you recognize that healthy generosity includes boundaries. The lesson isn't to stop giving. The lesson is to learning to receive with the same grace that you actually offer others. So looking at the next card, what beliefs or patterns from your past are influencing your present? So we have the Hermit here. And this one feels quite deeply personal because Spirit is showing a pattern of self-resilience, a pattern of withdrawing, a pattern of figuring things out alone. I'm hearing, and this is your Virgo card that's come out, right? From your Virgo side, that many of our Virgo Libra Cuspers maybe have learned early in life that seeking answers within maybe felt safer than depending on others. The Hermit gave you wisdom, right? But it may also have taught you a little bit of isolation. Some of you, when life maybe becomes difficult, your first instinct is to retreat. You process alone, you heal alone, you carry burdens alone. Not because you don't care about others, because somewhere along the way, maybe vulnerability stopped feeling safe. Maybe some of you struggle asking for support because you became known as the strong one, the wise one, the one who always has it together. But the Spirit says the identity of being the strong one may just be preventing deeper connections. Then perhaps some of you maybe spent so much time reflecting that you became trapped in an analysis, right? The overthinking, the replaying conversations, trying to understand every detail. Where the Hermit is just reminding you that wisdom is valuable, right? But healing isn't found solely through understanding. Sometimes healing happens through connection, through sharing, through allowing others to walk beside you. So what Spirit says here is the old belief influencing your present is that I have to do this alone. So perhaps June is asking you to question whether that's actually true. And finally here, how can you learn to sit with the difficult emotions instead of avoiding them? While we do have the Hierophant reversed. And that's a powerful card because here Spirit says that your emotions may not need fixing. They may simply need some freedom, right? They may simply need freedom. So the Hierophant reverse speaks about releasing the rigid expectations, breaking old rules, questioning the inherited beliefs. That could include emotional beliefs, right? Maybe some of you were taught that certain emotions were unacceptable. Maybe anger wasn't allowed. Maybe sadness was seen as weakness. Maybe vulnerability felt unsafe. And then as a result, maybe you learned to suppress emotions rather than express them. You may believe healing should look a certain way, some of you. You think that you should be over it by now. You think you should have figured it out already. But Spirit's saying that healing doesn't follow a schedule. Your journey is your own. Then perhaps some of you avoid emotions because they don't fit the image maybe you've built of yourself. You prefer the logic over feeling, the control over the uncertainty, answers over surrender. So the Hierophant reversed says, maybe it's actually asking here, what if you stop judging your emotions and start listening to them? What if the feeling you've been resisting contains the lesson that you've actually been searching for? So what Spirit is saying here is the emotional healing begins when you stop forcing yourself into someone else's definition of strength. Virgo Libra Cuspers, I feel like even with the June astrology mirrors this reading, all right? And the reason why I'm saying that is the month did begin with that Mercury entering Cancer, bringing the attention towards the emotional awareness, intuition, and heartfelt conversations. So this energy immediately supports the theme of the giving and receiving and the emotional honesty. Now we also do have that Venus-Jupiter conjunction that's happening in Cancer on the 9th, right? Which is the expansion, which expands the opportunities for healing relationships, dynamics and recognizing where maybe you've been pouring energy into others while neglecting yourself. And even with the Gemini new moon around the 15th, which opens up a powerful new cycle around communication perspective shifts. Many of you may have gained some sort of clarity about patterns that you've carried about for years, right? And then we have Chiron that's entering Taurus on the 19th. It's moving out of Aries, right? So this is bringing this collective healing energy that highlights the self-worth, security, and value. Seems that is directly connected to that Six of Pentacles, where Spirit's saying many of the Virgo Libra Cuspers will begin healing beliefs that their worth depends on what they do for others. And even with Cancer season that's coming up on the 21st, encouraging the deeper emotional reflection and self-nurturing. Towards the end of the month, when Mercury does also go retrograde in Cancer, where maybe some of you, the old emotions, old relationship patterns, old conversations, maybe even old wounds around support and belonging may surface. And it's not to create chaos, it's just to bring awareness, all right? And then with the Capricorn full moon on the 29th, this will illuminate where imbalances have maybe existed and what is ready to be released. So even with Jupiter entering Leo on the 30th, it's bringing this powerful cycle of self-expression, confidence, creativity, and authentic visibility. So perhaps it's just, this is going to be a reminder that your voice matters as well. So what Spirit is showing me is a scale. One side is filled with the needs of others, and the other is maybe holding on your own, right? One side is holding your own. So for a long time, you've been adding the weight of everyone else on everyone else's side, right? More support, more understanding, more patience, more effort. But then Spirit is saying, you've done it from a place of love. But somewhere along the way, you forgot that your needs belong to the scale as well. Your feelings matter. Your healing matters. Your dreams matter. Your boundaries matter. Your energy matters. June is not asking you to become less caring. It's asking you to become equally caring towards yourself. Because the version of you that's emerging now is actually learning a powerful truth. Love is not measured by how much you sacrifice. Worth is not measured by how much you give. And strength is not measured by how much you carry alone. So what Spirit is saying here is that you were never meant to pour from an empty cup. You're always meant to receive as well. So beautiful souls, if this found you at the right time, perhaps you can claim, I honor my needs as much as I honor others. You honor your needs as much as you honor others. Thank you for liking, subscribing, leaving comments, and remember, beautiful soul, the moment you stop abandoning yourself for the comfort of others is the moment your true healing begins. I'll see you in the next one. Love and light, beautiful. Hey, Libra, Scorpios, welcome in, beautiful souls. What if the approval you've been searching for isn't missing? What if it's one thing you've never fully given yourself? Because what Spirit's saying is June is the month you actually stop chasing validation outside of yourself and start recognizing your own worth. And that shift changes everything. So, sorry if I apologize if I'm sounding a bit nasal. The flu came and knocked me down. I'm woman down right now. But I'm getting better. So I apologize if my voice sounds a bit funny and nasally and so forth. So let's dive in, beautiful souls. Thank you for liking and being part of the Mystical Wolf Soul Tribe. What shadow work is needed to unlock your next phase of your personal transformation? Well, we do have the Six of Wands. So, at first glance, right, this card looks like a victory, success, recognition, achievement. And it is, right? But in shadow work, Spirit is highlighting something a little bit deeper. The need to be seen, the need to be acknowledged, the need to know your efforts matter. So my Libra Scorpios, my Cuspers, many of you maybe have spent years proving yourself, working hard, healing, growing, showing up, and yet there may still be a part of you asking, do people see everything I've survived? Do they recognize how much I've actually done? Do they appreciate what I bring? And what Spirit is saying, there's nothing wrong with wanting that kind of recognition, right? But the shadow appears when maybe your sense of worth becomes dependent upon it, right? Maybe some of you, achieve something meaningful, yet instead of feeling proud, maybe you immediately wonder whether anyone noticed, whether anyone appreciated, whether it was enough. Then perhaps some of you are constantly comparing your progress to others. You celebrate for a moment, then immediately focus on someone who appears further ahead. Or perhaps, what Spirit's actually saying here is, they're actually saying comparison is stealing the joy of your own journey. All right. Then some of you may actually downplay your gifts because maybe you're afraid of appearing arrogant, that you secretly long to be acknowledged. So perhaps the Six of Wands is here asking you is, can you become the first person to celebrate yourself? Can you recognize your own growth without waiting for permission? Because I'm hearing your next transformation begins when your confidence comes from within rather than that external applause. You get it? You know what I'm saying, right? So what beliefs or patterns from your past are influencing your present? While we do have the Eight of Cups here, it's quite an emotional card, this. So what Spirit is saying here is someone walking away, right? Not because they wanted to, because they had to. All right, so that's what Spirit's showing from this card. And I feel like some of you, Libra, Scorpio, Cuspers, may carry a pattern of emotional self-protection born from past disappointments. Then at some point, walking away became that survival skill, leaving the situations, leaving relationships, leaving emotional vulnerability, leaving hopes behind before they could actually hurt you. So perhaps some of you leave emotionally before they leave physically, or you leave emotionally before you leave physically, all right? Like the moment something feels a little bit uncertain, a part of you begins preparing for an exit strategy, right? You're looking for that door out. Where's the next exit? And then perhaps some of you maybe struggle fully trusting happiness because past experiences taught you that things can change quickly. So maybe you keep one foot in the door and you keep one foot out the door emotionally, right? Like that, one foot in, one foot out. And then for some of you, you have maybe become incredibly dependent because disappointment maybe taught you not to rely on others. So what Spirit's saying, the strength did help you survive, but it may now be preventing a deeper intimacy and connection. So the Eight of Cups can reveal an old belief, right? If I leave first, I can't be hurt. So maybe June is going to be asking you to examine whether that belief is still protecting you or if it's limiting you. Next up we have, how can you learn to sit with difficult emotions instead of avoiding them? The Four of Pentacles. Spirit is immediately showing or highlighting closed hands here. All right. Holding on, controlling, containing, managing, protecting. So the Four of Pentacles isn't necessarily about avoiding the emotions. It can be also about controlling them, right? Keeping them neatly organized. Safely tucked away, where nobody can see them. Not even you sometimes. So perhaps some of you intellectualize your feelings instead of feeling them. You understand why you're hurt, why you're angry, why you're sad, but understanding isn't always the same as processing, right? Then perhaps some of you fear vulnerability because openness led to disappointment. So maybe you learn to keep your heart guarded, not closed, just heavily protected. Then the last one, I'm feeling like some of you maybe you pride yourself on being strong, resilient, composed, right? But Spirit says true strength is not the emotional control, right? It's the emotional honesty. So perhaps here with the Four of Pentacles, actually asking, what feeling are you holding so tightly that it cannot move? What feelings are you holding on to so tightly it cannot move? Because the emotions are energy, right? And energy needs movement. Healing begins when you stop gripping so tightly to what needs release. So wow, my Libra, Scorpio, Cuspers, June, even astrology is mirroring this energy beautifully. The reason why I'm saying is Mercury entered Cancer right at the beginning of the month, bringing that emotional awareness, encouraging deeper reflection around your inner world, right? And then with Venus that in Jupiter conjunction around the 9th, which is going to be expanding themes around self-worth, emotional healing, and heart-centered growth. So maybe many of you might just realize where you've maybe been seeking validation outside of yourself. And then even with the Gemini and new moon around the 15th, it's going to open some sort of fresh chapter around a mindset, communication, maybe even perspective. And this new moon might just support something to do with rewriting old stories about your worth and success. And then Chiron that enters Taurus on the 19th, right? It's moving out of the Aries. And this will be a collective healing energy focusing on the self-worth, security, trust, and emotional stability. So perhaps themes that are deeply connected to both the Six of Wands and the Eight of Cups, all right, which is really connected to those regarding the Chiron and Taurus. And then Cancer season that is happening around the 21st is bringing some sort of opportunities for emotional healing and self-reflection. So towards also month's end, all right, where Mercury goes retrograde in Cancer, something about those old emotions, old relationship patterns, old disappointments may just come up, and anything that's unresolved wounds surrounding trust and validation, it might just surface. Not to punish you, but maybe to help you finally release them. And even with that Capricorn full moon on the 29th, it eliminates where maybe the emotional control has replaced the emotional expression. And then we have that Jupiter entering Leo on the 30th, which is bringing a powerful cycle of confidence, of visibility, and self-expression, and authentic self-recognition. And that's exactly what this reading has been preparing for you. So, my Libra Scorpio Cuspers, I feel like Spirit is showing me here, they're giving me an imagery of someone standing on an edge, but there's no audience, no applause, no recognition, no validation, just you, all right? And Spirit asks, would you still be proud of who you've become? Would you still celebrate your growth? Would you still recognize your strength? Because the answer to that question holds the key to your healing. You survived things nobody knows about. You've healed wounds people never saw. You carried burdens quietly. You've transformed in ways that deserve acknowledgement. But June is teaching you something powerful, that your worth does not increase when others recognize it. Your worth already exists. The validation you've been seeking is not outside of you, it's within you. So Spirit is saying here, you do not need to earn your value. You do not need to prove your significance. You do not need permission to take up space. The version of you emerging now is no longer defined by old disappointments, no longer controlled by old beliefs, no longer waiting for someone else to confirm what your soul already knows. You are enough. Right now, exactly as you are. So beautiful soul, if this message found you at the right time, perhaps you can affirm, I recognize my own worth and release the need for outside validation. Thank you for liking, subscribing, leaving a comment. And remember, beautiful, the moment you stop seeking your value in the eyes of others is the moment you begin seeing it clearly in yourself. I'll check you around in the next one. Love and light, beautiful. Hey, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Cuspers. What if the reason you feel stuck isn't because there is no opportunities, but because maybe there's a bit too many? Because Spirit says June isn't about finding more options. It's about finally choosing what aligns with your soul and releasing everything that doesn't. Let's dive in here with your first card. What shadow work is needed to unlock the next phase of your personal transformation? So, Seven of Cups, all right? This card arrives with a powerful message, a card of possibilities, dreams, choices, visions, potential. But in shadow work, Spirit says this card often reveals distractions, fantasy, avoidance through the endless possibilities. Maybe perhaps the shadow work this month is asking you to, asking, are you keeping your options open because you're truly undecided, or because making a choice would require some sort of commitment? Because commitment means change, and change means letting something go, right? Thank you for hitting the like button, beautiful souls, and leaving comments. I really appreciate it. Some of you, though, are, I feel like, standing between multiple paths, okay? Relationships, it could be career opportunities, it could be spiritual directions, it could be creative projects, it could be homes, it could be different things for you, all right? You could keep waiting for the perfect clarity before choosing something. But Spirit says clarity often comes after the decision, not before it. And then perhaps some of you are living more in the future possibilities than the present reality. You imagine what could happen, what might happen, what should happen. Meanwhile, the present moment is just asking you for your attention. Maybe some of you may be paying attention to a dream that just no longer aligns with who you've become. Not because it's wrong, because you've evolved. So like the Seven of Cups is coming through saying, what illusion are you ready to release? What fantasy is preventing you from embracing reality? Because I'm hearing your transformation begins the moment you choose alignment over the endless options. What beliefs or patterns from your past are influencing your present? Well, death and rebirth, all right? And this card actually is connected to your cusp energy. Because Scorpio, your Scorpio side, understands transformation. Sagittarius understands expansion. Yet Spirit says some of you maybe are still carrying an identity that expired a long time ago. The Death card is not about physical endings. It's about that energetic endings, the psychological endings, right? The spiritual endings. And maybe many of you have experienced some profound transformations throughout your life. The challenge is that part of you still identifies maybe with the old versions of yourself. Now, maybe some of you may still see yourself through the lenses of the old wound, an old rejection, an old failure, even though maybe you've outgrown it. Then perhaps some of you continue expecting life to respond to you the way you did years ago, but you've changed, and but your expectations maybe haven't. So what Spirit is saying, your reality is reflecting who you're becoming and not who you used to be. And then some of you may be feeling pulled between your past identity and your emerging identity. A part of you wants familiarity, right? A part of you craves this transformation. So the Death card is saying the discomfort you're feeling is not evidence that something is wrong. It's evidence that something is changing, a belief influencing your present. Yeah, the belief influencing your present is, I still need to be who I used to be. So perhaps June is just asking you to release that belief, because I'm hearing the next chapter requires a new version of you. In card 3, we have the Ten of Wands on how you can learn to sit with difficult emotions instead of avoiding them. So Spirit is saying this card carries a profound truth, that many of you don't avoid emotions by running away from them. Maybe you avoid emotions by carrying the responsibility, staying busy, by focusing on everyone else's needs, by pushing forward. The Ten of Wands is coming through to reveal the emotional burden that disguised as strength. Maybe some of you have taken on responsibilities that were just never yours. You carry the emotional load of family members, friends, partners, co-workers. And what Spirit is saying here is you've maybe become accustomed to carrying everything that you've forgotten what it actually feels like to put something down. Some of you stay productive because productivity feels safer than vulnerability. It's like as long as you're working, fixing, helping, building, or solving problems, you don't have to fully sit with what you're feeling. Then some of you may just tell yourself, I'll deal with my emotions later. But later it becomes later. So the Ten of Wands is saying, what emotional burden are you carrying because you've convinced yourself you have to? What Spirit says is the difficult emotions, they don't become lighter through avoidance, right? They just don't. They become lighter through the acknowledgement. Healing does begin when you stop treating every burden as yours to carry alone. My Scorpio Sagittarius Cuspers, right? June's astrology even is mirroring this energy in extraordinary ways. Mercury that entered Cancer at the start of this month is like encouraging for some of you the emotional reflection and helping the hidden truth rise to the surface. And even with the Venus-Jupiter conjunction that will be happening on the 9th is creating this powerful opportunity for the emotional expansion and the heart-centered healing. That maybe many of you are experiencing clarity regarding relationships, dreams, future directions. And even that Gemini new moon, all right, on the 15th, it's going to become especially significant because Gemini energy reflects the 7 of Cups. Choices, possibilities, multiple pathways. Even though this is a water card, all right, and Gemini's air, it's still choices, possibilities, and multiple pathways. The new moon is going to ask you to focus your energy rather than scatter it because we've got a lot of Cancer also happening in the air. And then also with Chiron, right, it enters Taurus on the 19th. So I feel like that is a collective shift that's happening, that's focusing on the self-worth, security, trust, and stability. That maybe many of these Scorpio, Sagittarius, Cuspers will begin releasing outdated identities tied to wounds. And with that Cancer season that's beginning, it's inviting deeper emotional honesty. So what Spirit says here is where the death and rebirth card becomes the activation, right? Becomes activated. The old version of yourself may surface, not to reclaim you, but to show you actually how much you've evolved. Moving towards the end of the month when Mercury goes into retrograde in Cancer, that old emotions, old chapters, old identities, that all might reappear. Not because you're moving backwards. It's because you're finally ready to close some chapters completely. And that Capricorn full moon on the 29th, it's coming in to eliminate where maybe you've been carrying too many responsibilities and where release is necessary. And again, with that Jupiter entering Leo on the 30th, beginning a whole bold new cycle on the self-expression, confidence, creativity, and authentic leadership. I feel like there's going to be a powerful reward for the inner work that you've done. So my Scorpio Sagittarius Cuspers, Spirit is actually showing me here some of you standing before many doors. Some doors represent old dreams, some represent old identities, some represent the future possibilities, some represent paths that you've actually already outgrown. And Spirit says, not every door is meant to be opened. Not every opportunity is meant to be pursued. Not every version of yourself is meant to come with you. Because the transformation happens, that is happening in June, is not about adding more to your life. It's about choosing. Choosing what aligns, choosing what nourishes your soul, choosing what reflects who you're becoming and who you've become. And most importantly, choosing to put down a burden, the burden that was never meant for you to carry forever, the version of you emerging now is going to be lighter, clearer, more authentic, more aligned, more free. And what Spirit says, you don't need to carry every possibility. You don't need to carry every responsibility. You don't need to carry every version of yourself into the future. So, beautiful soul, some things are just meant to be released so something better can begin, right? Perhaps if you want to affirm like, I release what no longer aligns and choose my highest path. I choose what no longer aligns and choose my highest path. You choose what no longer aligns and you choose your highest path. Thank you for liking, subscribing, leaving comments. And remember, beautiful soul, every transformation requires a choice. And sometimes the most powerful choice you can make is deciding what you're finally ready to leave behind. I'll see you in the next one. Love and light, beautiful. Hey, Sagittarius, Capricorns, Cuspers, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Cuspers, welcome in, beautiful souls. What if the hardest thing you're being asked to do this month isn't to fight harder, isn't to prove yourself, isn't to keep pushing forward. What if Spirit is asking you finally to let something end? I'm hearing June carries a powerful message that not everything is leaving your life is a loss. Some things are leaving because your soul has outgrown them. Now, if you notice that the 3 cards here, the Death and Rebirth, the 5 of Wands, the 7 of Swords, look at the light shining in each. It could be very significant. But let's look at the Death and Rebirth regarding the shadow work is needed this month to unlock your next phase of your personal transformation. Death and Rebirth. I feel like here, this card is the heartbeat of your entire reading. And Spirit wants to make something very clear here that this is not a card of destruction for some of you if you think that way. This is actually a card of transformation. The shadow work needed this month involves releasing an identity, a belief, an attachment, a version of yourself, or something that just no longer aligns with who you're becoming. Many of you maybe have felt this happening already. You may have felt disconnected from old goals, maybe relationships, habits, dreams, or maybe even versions of yourself. And part of you just keeps trying to revive what your soul's already trying to release. Remember to always take what resonates, leave the rest, right? Some of you maybe are still holding on to a dream that once inspired you, but you've changed. You've evolved, and the dream just no longer reflects who you are. And what Spirit's saying, maybe it's time to let go, because it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that you failed, all right? It means that you've actually grown. Then perhaps some of you are carrying an identity built around survival, the strong one, the responsible one, the provider, the achiever, the one who never quits. But Spirit says those identities help you survive for a season. They're not meant to define your entire life. And then some of you, I feel like, are experiencing endings that feel a little uncomfortable. Maybe there's a relationship that's shifting, a friendship that's fading, career changes happening, spiritual awakenings. So the Death card is maybe just asking you to stop asking how to save what is ending. And maybe start asking what is trying to be born. Because June is a rebirth month. And rebirth requires a release. What belief or pattern from your past are influencing your present? Well, we do have the 5 of Wands. And I feel like Spirit's immediately showing here internal conflict. All right? Competition, comparison, pressure. Maybe it's a belief that's influencing your present that may be rooted in the idea that life is always a struggle, that success must be fought for, that everything meaningful requires conflict. And sometimes many Sagittarius, Capricorn, Cuspers learned to earn their place, earned recognition, earned love. And because of that, maybe your nervous system may be accustomed to thriving or striving. Maybe some of you struggle to relax when things are going well. When life becomes peaceful, you start looking for the problem. Not intentionally, but it's just because chaos became familiar. Then maybe some of you just compare yourself to others more than maybe you realize. You look at someone else's timeline and someone else's achievement, someone else's success, and suddenly your own journey feels smaller. But Spirit is saying comparison is creating battles that don't actually exist. Now, some of you may feel like you have something to prove. Maybe to family, to society, to people who doubted you. Maybe even to yourself. So maybe what the 5 of Wands is asking you is, what if your worth was never dependent on winning? What if peace is available when you stop treating life like competition? Because June is asking you maybe to release some sort of unnecessary battles, including the ones happening inside your mind, I'm hearing. How can you learn to sit with the difficult emotions instead of avoiding them? Interesting, we've got the 7 of Swords, right? Quite fascinating card in a shadow work reading, right? And the reason why I'm saying that is Spirit is actually showing me many of you don't avoid emotions in obvious ways. You maybe avoid them mentally. Maybe you outthink them. You rationalize them. you distract yourself from them. You explain them away. So maybe the Seven of Swords reveals emotional avoidance through strategy, through intellect, through keeping yourself one step ahead of the vulnerability. Maybe some of you, when sadness appears, you immediately analyze it. You want to understand it, you want to solve it, you want to fix it. But Spirit says not every emotion needs solving. Some emotions simply need witnessing. Then maybe some of you, when fear appears, you create backup plans, escape routes, contingency plans, right? That contingency, you know what word I'm talking about, right? You focus on controlling the future outcomes rather than sitting with the present feelings. Then maybe just some of you become so skilled at appearing fine that maybe you've convinced yourself that you are actually fine. Meanwhile, deep emotions remain unacknowledged beneath the surface. So perhaps the Seven of Swords is asking, what truths are you avoiding that you're feeling, all right? What truths are you avoiding feeling? Because emotional healing begins when you actually stop running away from your inner experiences. So Spirit says a vulnerability is not weakness, it's honesty. And honesty is where true transformation begins. And you know, my Sagittarius Capricorn Cusp is number 13, number 4, number 5, or number 7. Any of those numbers could be significant to you guys. Spirit's coming through to say actually the astrology, June astrology, feels almost tailor-made for this reading. And the reason why I'm saying is, you know, we had that Mercury entering Cancer at the beginning of the month, right? Bringing that emotional awareness, and also encouraging deeper conversations with yourself. And Mercury Chiron connection earlier also this month supports the healing old wounds through truth and understanding. And even the Venus-Jupiter conjunction on the 9th is creating this beautiful opportunity for the emotional growth, relationship healing, and also that a great self-compassion. Maybe many of you may even recognize where you've been carrying unnecessary pressure through expectations. Even that Gemini new moon that's happening on the 15th is inviting for a fresh perspective and encourages that flexibility around old narratives. Then we're going to have that major shift on the 19th when Chiron moves from Aries into Taurus. That'll be like a collective healing transit, highlighting themes again of self-worth, stability, security, and value. Exactly the areas that are touched by the Five of Wands. Spirit says many of the Sagittarius Capricorn cuspers are healing the belief that they must constantly prove their worth. What Cancer season is coming in on the 21st, inviting that deeper emotional reflection and inner transformation. And even with that Mercury retrograde that's going to be in Cancer on the 29th, that's starting, it's bringing up maybe some old memories, emotions, unresolved chapters, just back into awareness. It's not to trap you in the past, but to help you finally release it. And we're having that Capricorn full moon on the 29th, becomes especially significant for your cusp energy. Finally, Jupiter that will be entering Leo on the 30th is, I'm hearing, opening a brand new chapter of confidence, courage, leadership, creativity, and authentic self-expression. There's a powerful reward, I'm hearing, of transformation that you've been moving through. My Sagittarius, Capricorn cuspers, I'm here. What I'm seeing here, I don't know what I'm saying, I'm hearing. I'm seeing a phoenix, all right? And I'm seeing this phoenix not during a moment of a fight, not after the transformation, but in a moment just before. The moment where the old form can no longer continue. The moment where everything feels uncertain, the moment where surrender becomes necessary. And Spirit says, like what they're saying here, many of you are standing in the exact place now. A part of you knows something is ending. A part of you knows something is new, is emerging. But the space between the two realities feel a little bit uncomfortable. And the truth is, you're not meant to carry your old identities into your next chapter. You're not meant to fight every battle. You're not meant to think your way through every emotion. And I'm hearing you certainly not meant to stay attached to the old version of yourself that your soul has already outgrown. I'm hearing June is teaching you the sacred art of release, because what is leaving is creating room for greater alignment, room for greater peace, room for the life that actually reflects who you are now. What Spirit's saying is trust the ending, trust the transformation, trust the rebirth, because the version of you that is emerging is stronger, wiser, freer, and more authentic than anything you've actually felt before or left behind. Perhaps you can affirm, you release the old and you welcome your rebirth. I release the old and welcome my rebirth. Thank you for liking, subscribing, leaving comments. And also remember, beautiful, the caterpillar does not become the butterfly by holding on to what it used to be. Transformation begins the moment you trust what you're becoming. I'll check you around in the next one. Love and light, beautiful. Capricorn, Aquarius, Cuspers, welcome in, beautiful souls. What if the reason you feel restless lately isn't because something is missing, but because something is actually finished? Because Spirit says June is not a month of chasing. It's a month of completion. And the shadow work isn't starting something new. It's finally allowing the old chapter to close. Thank you for coming in here, beautiful souls, hitting the like button, leaving comments. Just know I truly appreciate you. What shadow work is needed to unlock your next phase of personal transformation? Well, we got the world here, right? Enormous energy it's carrying. The world is one of the most powerful cards in the tarot because it represents completion, fulfillment, graduation, integration, the end of a cycle. But shadow work asks an important question. Why are you still carrying something that has already served its purpose? Spirit says many of you have already completed a major soul lesson. The growth happened, the healing happened, the wisdom gained. Yet part of you keeps revisiting the same chapter, the same wound, the same story, the same identity. Maybe some of you have outgrown a relationship dynamic, whether it's romantic, friendship, family, or even a connection with your former self. But because it once mattered so much, maybe you keep returning to it emotionally. And Spirit says closure isn't always something you receive. Sometimes it's something you choose. Then perhaps some of you are waiting for a sign that you're ready for the next chapter. But the world says the fact that you're feeling restless is a sign. Your soul already knows that it's time. And then perhaps some of you keep focusing on what didn't happen instead of recognize everything did. You look at unfinished goals rather than the completed growth. And Spirit saying your transformation begins when you honor how far you've come, not how far you still want to go. So perhaps the shadow work this month is releasing an attachment to a chapter that has already taught you everything it came up to teach. So what belief or pattern from your past is influencing your present? 7 of Pentacles. Spirit is showing here patience, waiting, working, investing energy, trusting the process. But there is another side to this card, right? That maybe some of you have spent years believing that success comes only through relentless effort. Rest must be earned. That worth is measured through productivity. That if you're not actively building something, you're somehow falling behind. So maybe some of you struggle celebrating accomplishments because you're already focused on the next goal, the next mountain, the next achievement, the next responsibility. And then perhaps some of you have become so accustomed to waiting for results that you've forgotten how to enjoy the present moment. You're always preparing for the future, always planning, always anticipating what's next. Then maybe some of you may secretly believe that life may always feel difficult before the rewards arrive. So when things become easier, part of you feels a little uncomfortable. And Spirit says this belief comes from an old conditioning. So what the Seven of Pentacles may just be asking you is, what if growth doesn't always require struggle? What if you've always planted enough seeds? The belief influencing the present is, must I constantly work harder to deserve the next blessing? So maybe June is asking you to challenge that belief. And finally, here with the Five of Wands, how can you learn to sit with difficult emotions instead of avoiding them? And this card is quite a surprise. And the reason why I'm saying is many of the Capricorn, Aquarius cuspers maybe avoid difficult emotions through internal conflict. Maybe you debate with yourself, you argue with yourself, you question yourself, you analyze every angle instead of feeling the emotion itself. The Five of Wands reveals the emotional resilience, the inner battle that begins whenever uncomfortable feelings arise. Maybe some of you, when sadness appears, a part of you immediately says, you shouldn't feel this way. So instead of feeling sad, you start fighting it. And then perhaps some of you, when anger appears, you judge yourself for having it. You try to rationalize it, you minimize it, you push it away. The emotion becomes the battle instead of the message. And then finally, some of you are actually exhausted because you've been fighting your emotions rather than listening to them. So maybe Spirit is saying that your emotions, they're actually saying, not maybe, but some of you maybe, that your emotions are not your enemies. If this is resonating with that, specifically you. Your emotions is actually information. So what the Five of Wands is asking, what would happen if you stop arguing with your feelings? What would happen if you allow them to exist without trying to win against them? Healing begins when emotions become conversations than rather the conflicts, right? And even the June astrology, it reflects your reading. And the reason why I'm saying this, if we just go back a bit, all right, to the astrology that we already discussed in the monthly, is the month where it did begin with Mercury entering Cancer, encouraging the emotional awareness and helping you understand what needs closure. Venus and Jupiter conjunction on the 9th expands the emotional healing and invites greater compassion towards yourself and your journey. The Gemini new moon on the 15th is opening a fresh cycle around mindset and perspective. Many of you will begin seeing old situations differently. Then comes one of the most important shifts of the month, is when Chiron enters Taurus on the 19th. That will be a collective healing focusing on worthiness, value, security, and self-trust, right? Themes that are really deeply connected to the Seven of Pentacles. Many of you are maybe being asked to release the belief that your worth depends on constant effort. Cancer season on the 21st, bringing the attention towards the emotional processing and relationship dynamics. And even when Cancer goes retrograde, right? Mercury retrograde in Cancer. Old conversations, memories, old emotional patterns, something unfinished, and unfinished chapters may actually resurface. Not because they meant to continue, because they're ready. They're ready to close, right? And then the Capricorn full moon is very significant to your cusp energy. And I feel like this full moon might just eliminate something you've outgrown and everything that you've accomplished. That graduation point, that completion. And finally, Jupiter entering Leo on the 30th. It's opening up a whole brand new cycle regarding confidence, creativity, leadership, visibility, and personal empowerment. Exactly the energy needed for your next chapter. So my Capricorn, Aquarius cuspers, Spirit is actually showing me someone here standing at the edge of a bridge. Behind them is like this old landscape, a familiar landscape, right? A place with old memories, lessons, victories, heartbreaks, growth. Ahead of them is like a whole new horizon, unfamiliar, expansive, full of possibilities. What Spirit says here is the bridge is not asking you to carry everything across. Some things belong to the other side. Some identities belong to the old version of you. Some struggles have already completed their purpose. Some lessons just no longer need that repeating. And the reason maybe you're feeling caught towards something new isn't because maybe you failed where you are. It's because you have succeeded. You've completed the cycle. You've gathered the wisdom, you've earned the lessons, and now your soul's asking for movement, expansion, trust, foreclosure. And Spirit says, you do not need to keep proving yourself. You do not need to keep fighting your emotions. You do not need to keep revisiting doors that have already closed. The chapter ending now made you who you are. But that is also not where your story ends. You can affirm, I honor the ending and welcome the next chapter. Beautiful soul, thank you for liking, subscribing, leaving comments. And remember, not every ending is a loss. Some endings are proof that you've successfully became the person the lesson was meant to create. Sending you love and light, and I'll check you around in the next one. Hey, Pisces, Aquarius, Pisces, Cuspers. What if the next chapter of your life isn't waiting for you to learn something new? What if it's waiting for you to finally feel something you've been trying not to feel? Because Spirit says June is bringing a breakthrough. But before the breakthrough comes, the truth comes. And before the truth comes is emotional honesty. My Aquarius, Pisces, Cuspers, let's really have a look. Thank you for liking the video, leaving comments, and being subscribers here at the Mystical Wolf Soul Tribe. Thank you so much for you guys. What shadow work is needed to unlock your next phase of personal transformation? Well, we do have the Knight of Swords. So this card comes basically in charging with that urgency, right? The action. The Knight of Swords is action. The momentum, the mental clarity, the determination. But in shadow work, Spirit's like highlighting something a little bit deeper, like maybe your tendency to move faster than your emotions can process. Maybe many of you are incredibly resilient. Like when life gets difficult, you don't stop. You just keep going. You push forward, right? You find solutions. You focus on what comes next. And maybe while that strength has maybe carried you through many storms, it may also be preventing you from deeper healing. Perhaps some of you have rushed into the next chapter before fully closing the last one, right? You just move on. You start over, you reinvent yourself. But maybe there's some unresolved emotions quietly following you into the new beginning. Like, example, maybe some of you, when uncertainty appears, you immediately search for answers, plans, strategies, solutions. And what Spirit is saying that maybe perhaps not every solution requires immediate action. Some situations just require some presence. And then for some of you, maybe you have become so focused on moving forward that you've maybe forgotten how to pause maybe long enough to ask, how do I actually feel? Because the Knight of Swords says, what would happen if you stop trying to outrun your emotions? Because your next transformation is about moving faster. It's about moving with greater awareness. All right, I just had to pause and blow my nose. Sorry if I sound a bit nasal. I've got a lot of congestion with some sort of flu or cold that came to tackle me down. So what beliefs or patterns from your past is influencing your present? All right, so Page of Pentacles. I feel like with this one, it's carrying the energy of beginnings, right? It's a beginning energy, learning, growth, potential. But beneath the surface, there is maybe an important shadow pattern here, all right? So maybe some of you have learned early that success comes through preparation, that airplane could be confirmation for someone. Work hard, improvement, development. You learn to focus on what needs fixing, what needs improving, what still needs work. While maybe the mindset helped you grow, it may have also created a belief that you are always a work in progress and never quite enough as you are. Then perhaps some of you achieve something meaningful, yet instead of celebrating, you immediately focus on the next thing that you need to improve. Then for some of you, maybe you struggle receiving compliments because part of you believes you're still not there yet, right? Not that yet there. You're always becoming, you're always learning, you're always preparing. And then perhaps you may secretly postpone joy until you reach a future version of yourself. Maybe you tell yourself, I'll relax when. I'll be happy when. I'll feel worthy when. And what Spirit is saying, this belief is maybe keeps fulfillment permanently in the future, you know? So the Page of Pentacles might just be asking you, can you honor your growth without making your worth dependent on it? Because, you know, healing begins when you stop seeing yourself as a project, all right? And then start seeing yourself actually as a person. So how can you sit to learn with the difficult emotions instead of avoiding them? Well, we do have the Ace of Cups. I feel like this is the card is the medicine for you, you know, the healing, the answer. The Ace of Cups doesn't ask you to solve your emotions. It just asks you to experience them, to allow them, welcome them. All right. So perhaps Spirit is saying that many of you, what Spirit's coming through is that some of you try to understand your feelings before allowing themselves to, you know, before allowing yourselves to actually feel them. I'm hearing here that with this card, the Ace of Cups, it says, open your heart first. Understand later. So maybe when sadness appears, don't immediately search for the lesson, right? Maybe allow yourself simply to feel the sadness without judgment, without resistance. And then maybe some of you, when grief surfaces, stop asking, how long should it take? Healing has its own timeline, right? So maybe the Ace of Cups is coming through to remind you that emotions move naturally when you welcome, when they are welcomed, right? Maybe some of you are carrying tears you've never allowed yourself to cry. Words maybe you've never spoken, feelings you've never fully acknowledged. And what Spirit's saying, the emotional release is not weakness. It's actually a sacred cleansing, right? So the Ace of Cups might just be teaching you here with that healing happens when emotions are allowed to flow rather than being contained. The goal isn't the emotional control, right? The goal is the emotional openness. So my Aquarius Pisces cusp is, even the June astrology, if we're looking at that, and it aligns quite beautiful with these cards for your reading. The Mercury that entered Cancer in the beginning of the month, all right? Shifting the collective focus towards the emotions, intuition, memories, and inner reflection. And that energy is directly actually focusing on the Ace of Cups. Like the universe is encouraging the emotional honesty, right? And even with Jupiter, Venus and Jupiter, that conjunction that will be happening around the 9th, it's creating like one of these most heart-opening moments of the month for you. So many of you may experience healing around self-worth, relationships, forgiveness, and the emotional expressions. Those birds are going crazy out there. And then Chiron is entering Taurus on the 19th, right? There's this like major healing shift focusing, which is going to be on your worthiness, stability, self-value, and trust. Yeah, it's really about themes that are directly connected to that Page of Pentacles. So maybe perhaps many of you are being asked to release some sort of perfectionism and embrace self-acceptance. And I mean, even if we're looking at Cancer season that's coming in around the 21st, amplifying the emotional awareness, encouraging the deep connection with your inner world. Yeah, and then also again, towards the end of the month, we're having that Mercury retrograde in Cancer, right? Which will begin the old emotions, the old memories, the old relationships, anything that's unfinished, emotional, those kind of chapters may just resurface, not to hurt you, but just to help you heal them. I mean, things come up for healing, right? That's why they come up, all right? And I mean, looking at the Capricorn full moon on the 29th, all right, which will eliminate what has been hidden beneath the surface and just creating the opportunities for powerful emotional releases, right? And finally, everyone knows that we also have Jupiter entering Leo. Well, if you spend time on social media, you'll see that they've been talking a while now about Jupiter entering Leo, and I've spoken a few times about it, right? So if you didn't know, well, now you know. And this is like bringing in that opening of a bold new cycle on your confidence, your creativity, your visibility, self-expression, and heart-centered leadership. And I feel like there will be a beautiful reward for all the inner work that you have been doing. If you've been putting in inner work, well, a reward is coming in. So Spirit is also showing me here like a river, all right? My Aquarius Pisces cuspers. For a long time, you've been standing on the riverbank, trying to understand the water, studying it, analyzing, predicting like where is it going to go, where it might go, right? Trying to control this movement. But what Spirit's saying is the healing was never on the riverbank. The healing was always in the water. Your emotions are not your obstacles. They're actually your pathways. They are your guides. They are the messages that's carrying wisdom your soul has been waiting to receive. The vision of you, or the version of you that is emerging that in June, is no longer trying to outrun the feelings, no longer trying to perfect themselves before they deserve happiness, no longer trying to think their way through every emotional experience. Instead, you're learning something a bit far more powerful. How to trust your heart, how to trust your feelings, how to trust yourself. So what Spirit's saying, that you don't need to become someone else to deserve love. You don't need to fix every flaw before receiving joy. And you do not need to have all the answers before taking the next step. You are already enough, all right? You already are worthy. And you are already becoming everything that your soul has actually come here to be. Perhaps you can affirm like to yourself, or in the comments if you feel called to, is you trust your heart and you allow yourself to feel. I trust my heart and allow myself to feel. And then thank you so much for liking this video, subscribing, and leaving comments. And just remember that the emotions you stop running from often become actually the doorways to healing that maybe you've been searching all along. So beautiful souls, thank you for being here, and I'll check you around in the next one.